Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sisters, misters and plot twisters, welcome along to the Joe Spider YouTube channel where we discuss books and little else. And ladies and gentlemen, we are indeed legion. You will remember but 48 hours ago I put out a shamelessly sycophantic call / plea for subscribers. We were 50 shy of the total of 1,000 and we have now positively leapt beyond such an accolade. So I must first of all say thank you ever so much for all of you that did subscribe. I might say from the get-go that stardom shall not change me, ladies and gents. Rest assured I shall still be the moody, rabidly caffeinated, sesquipedalian young man that you see before you on a sort of not twice daily, but sort of thrice weekly basis. It may be said though that I do have a I don't feel much different. There is a slight spring in my step. I feel there is more weight to my words. I do feel that any of my swings have a greater radius, and it may well be that because there are more people around the fireplace, you are not, as Sherlock Holmes would have it, you are not yourselves luminous, but you are indeed conductors of light. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I do have to offer, first of all, as I say, YouTube is but a means to an end to me. When I do get my grubby, oily tentacles on monstrously dictatorial power, because you have subscribed very early and you are, as it were, a founder member, your families will be looked on favourably. There will be no crepuscular knocks at the door. My secret police will not be hounding you down. There'll be no prussic or vitriolic acid, there'll be no thumb screws, there'll be no nth degree, no interrogation, no shipping you off to distant lands. You will be looked upon favourably because you are a founder member. But yeah, a few thank yous just first of all. I am, of course, doing I think it's 10 classics that I'm going to be reading in 24 and I'm recommending to you. But first of all, just a few thanks. I think it's Alex from What Page Are You On? A person but for whom I would probably still be floundering on 12 or 15 subscribers. On my second or third video, he sort of, I don't know, sacrificed his public reputation and boosted one of my videos and got me to 150 really rather quickly, so without him I wouldn't be very popular, I don't think. And of course our patron and pariah, who is loathed and lauded on an equal basis, Mr. Steve Donahue. I've been on 45-minute videos with him for many times, and that of course has boosted me up. And for all of you that have commented, for all of you that have engaged in discussion, all of you fellow content creators out there, I mean, goodness, where do I start? Aaron Facer, Renee at the Left-Handed Reader, Katie at Books and Things, Randy Ray, the Literate Texan, I think it's Mark at Book Time with Elvis. Need I go on? All of you guys are really excellent, and you imbue me with the will to continue. So yes, that's pretty much it. So let's get into the nitty gritty of this stuff, shall we? Oh, and also, actually, this is now a call for. Do you want me to do a Q&A? If not, then say about it. Please do say. But I'm going to crack on with the with the classics for now, and perhaps hope that if you want to leave a question, fair enough. But I don't know whether a Q&A will be wanted. If you want to know how long the member is, or what type of car one drives, or where it is that I live, or any of the romantic extramarital vicissitudes that I've undergone in the past, then perhaps that might be necessary, but I'm not sure about a Q&A just for now. But anyway, let's stop blathering on. So we have 10 classics that I'm going to be reading in 2024. I make my channel essentially only about classic fiction. I do stray into, very rarely I will stray into science fiction and fantasy and detective fiction and crime fiction and some non-fiction as well, contemporary non-fiction. But it is largely black-spined penguin classics, folks, because they're cosy and they have been, almost by definition, put into a pantheon of expertise by critics of today and yesterday and of yonder, and so it just seems like the right things to be talking about. So first up we have Benjamin Disraeli's Königsby, I believe. I picked this up just very recently. Of course, Benjamin Disraeli was a Prime Minister of Great Britain in the 19th century. I nearly messed up there. A famous rival of William Gladstone. They twatted each other in the face on many occasions, at least verbally. This sophisticated rhetorician inebriated with the exuberance of his own verbosity, if I was to quote him. Not that I would do such a temerarious thing. So yes, nowadays our prime ministers merely consort with oligarchs and trade munitions to Saudi Arabia and write utterly mediocre books on the works of William Shakespeare and things of that nature, and obviously political treatises. But yes, this is composed by a master diplomat who, in an hour of defeat, possessed the drive and ability to fashion a work of art. Coningsby stands first in the thorny genre of the English political novel. It juxtaposes the romantic and cynical mind, focused on the intrigues of government. It gains its power from two contrasted figures who grow in dimension specifically through the novel's historical elements, rather than through conventional romantic portraiture. So it's historical stuff written by the guy at the top of the tree, or the greasy pole, as it were. So that'll be good, I'm sure. Next up we have, this is the first Black Spine Penguin classic, or yeah, an older Penguin classic, but nonetheless still a good one. This is Stendal, Scarlet and Black, written by Stendal in 1830. Sometimes appears on some covers. I think the more modern Penguin classic has it as the red and black, which obviously leads itself to more of a dichotomy, but Scarlet and Black sounds good enough to me. This obviously is about something much mentioned by modern critics is the Stendalian mirror that fiction sometimes holds up, in that it is a reflection of everyday life, yada yada yada. Quite how it took us 1,000 years to arrive at such an assumption, I'm not sure. But yes, to Stendal, the novel was a mirror of life reflecting the blue of the skies and the mire of the road below. Scarlet and Black, his greatest novel, reflects without distortion the France of the decades after Waterloo. Its haves and have-nots, its royalists and liberals, its Jesuits and Jasonists. Against this crowded backcloth moves the figure of Julian Sorel, a clever, ambitious, up-from-nothing hero whose tragic weakness is to lose his head in a crisis. So that may be our Julian Sorel, or it may be Stendhal, I'm not sure. But that's on my list. Again, it comes from I'm reliably informed that it's good, with a capital G. Next up, we have another Penguin classic. We have Sir Walter Scott's Waverly. Now, those of you who, like myself, happen to be what would you say, sequestered, rather unfortunately, in Generation Z, will, of course, find Waverly synonymous with Selena Gomez on Disney Channel and The Wizards of Waverly Place. Quite whether that will be involved in this, I'm not too sure. I'm sure Selena will make an appearance at some point in the book. So this is, apparently Sir Walter Scott is said to have not so much invented the historical novel, but popularised it and normalised it and, raised it to a higher acceptable level within the literati. This is, so in Waverly, his highly readable story of a romantic young man in the Jacobite Rebellion of 1745, Scott blends realism and romance, the old world and the new, enlightenment and romanticism. Waverly stands ultimately for peace and stability, for social and political cohesion and harmony, qualities which may, consciously or unconsciously, account for its immense popularity. So that's Waverly there. I think that's Bannock Bun. Referred to by very many Scots as, I think, the only time that Scottish people have ever trounced the English, but I'm more than happy for the record to be straight. So that's Waverly by Sir Walter Scott. Next up we have some non-fiction. We have Carlyle's selected writings. He is a much referred to historian. Of course, it's the great man, capital G, capital M, from which we that's the main thing that we get from Mr. Carlyle. The idea that history is not just again, as I'm going to quote Sherlock Holmes again, is not just the mere jostling around of millions of people around a few square miles, but is what would you say, catalysed and weaponised and, yes, just sometimes, utilised and manipulated by a few ultimately charismatic people, usually men, usually on a pulpit, usually trying to seem like the everyman, appealing to the hoi polloi. That was one of Carlyle's theories, and this has got a great many essays on such things, I would imagine. We've got on the opening part, we've got early essays, Goethe, Voltaire, on history, that sounds horrid. Chartism, which I've worked on at university, the Chartist movement in Britain, again in the 19th century, the French Revolution, past and present, and other things like that. So that's, I believe that to be Mr. Carlyle, obviously on the front, with a really rather scruffy beard. There are almost certainly a few cornflakes and Kit Kat wrappers on there. But yes, rather stern, isn't it? Look at him. Goodness me, he knows so much more about history than everybody, you can tell. So yes, that's Thomas Carlyle's selected writings. Next up, this may be a reread, but it's such a long time since I've read it that it has all but left my cerebellum entirely. This is Oscar Wilde, or my hippocampus rather, that's where memory is, isn't it? Oscar Wilde's A Picture of Dorian Gray. There is Dorian Gray there. So Oscar Wilde's alluring novel of decadence and sin was a success de scandale, or, successful scandal on publication. It follows Dorian Gray, who, enthralled by his own exquisite portrait, exchanges his soul for eternal youth and beauty. Influenced by his friend Lord Henry Wotton, he is drawn into a corrupt double life, indulging his desires in secret while remaining a gentleman in the eyes of polite society. So that's very good. I think he somehow he remains young in the portrait and in the mirror rather, and then all of a sudden in the picture rather, and then all of a sudden is an old man at the end. A little bit H.G. Wellsy as well in that sense. So yeah, I find Oscar Wilde a little bit confusing. People call him a I don't know, a very, very famous. He's just a very, very famous gay person. Essentially, he was a little bit. Ornate, and some of the sophisms and the truisms that he comes out with are, you know, quoted by people, you know, from here to Bedlam. But I've never found the play The Importance of Being Earnest is quite good, but yeah, I'm certainly not one on him. But yeah, this is another one that I will be getting through. This is a proper Penguin classic, a modern one. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Next up, something that was recently on the channel. Something from my Christmas book haul, which I was fortunate enough to acquire from a family member. Good afternoon, Gran, if you are watching. This is George Meredith's The Egoist. Sir Willoughby Pattern is rich, handsome, aristocratic, and looking for a wife. He is also vain, shallow, and completely self-interested. I'm already interested in this gentleman. There's some commonality here. In recounting the tangled story of Willoughby's attempts at marriage, toying with both the sentimental Letitia Dale and the strong-willed Clara Middleton, George Meredith creates a consummate portrait of monstrous vanity, a man enthralled to fashion and image, who values nothing for its own sake and becomes a prisoner of the conventions by which he lives. There is our Willoughby Pattern there, I'm sure, who is regaling a young lady there, and she is already becoming weak at the knees for some of her interlocutor's eloquence, I'm sure. But it's quite a thick thing. I've read the first page and didn't find it too hospitable, but it comes recommended to me by a reputable source, so I'm sure I'll get through that. Next up is a complete toe crusher, ladies and gentlemen. It is the book that everybody wants to read and loves to be able to have said they have read when they do finally plough and thumb through it. This is, of course, Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, in a rather cartoonish and I think infantile front cover there. Two people walking on gravel and another windswept in a dress, observing it. Somewhat in she is, I can't tell whether she happy or is she certainly elegant, I know that. But anyway, so War and Peace is a vast epic centred on Napoleon's war with Russia. While it expresses Tolstoy's view that history is an inexorable process which man cannot influence, he peoples his great novel with a cast of over 500 characters. Three of these, the artless and delightful Natasha Rostov, the world-weary Prince Andrew Bolkonsky, and the idealistic Pierre Bezukhov, illustrate Tolstoy's philosophy in this novel of unquestioned mastery. So, of course, translation plays a great part, apparently, in the quality or the enjoyability or viability of obviously Russian works and French works, and this one in particular is translated by Louise and Alma Maud from 1922 to 23, apparently. So it's an early one. Obviously, it's a Wordsworth classic. So, you know, Russophiles or translators, please let me know in the comments whether you think this will be agreeable with me. You will notice Tolstoy's Anna Karenina in the new Penguin classic translated by Piva and Volkonsky was not on my top 6 classics that I did the other day. Purely because I didn't find their translation very good. I've read I think it's Rodney Edmonds, which was I'm going to mess this up, 60s or 80s maybe or something like that, 20th century translation that I found much more ornate. I found Piva and Volkonsky to be a little bit stultifying, but anyway, yeah, this is War and Peace by Alma Maud. I read the first page and it sounds excellent. This is obviously 1,000 and odd pages. It is just ungovernably large, but yes, it's known really for Tolstoy's opinions, obviously its length, of course, and Tolstoy's conclusive chapter on the nature of history, I believe. Niall Ferguson always quotes it. So I'm not too sure. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. Rene, the left-handed reader, famously read 1 chapter a day in the year 2023 and cannot sing its praises high enough. And, you know, she is a sort of she's been a source of reasonable criticism in the past. Some stuff that she's liked, I've liked as well. So I'm sure, and obviously this has got so many advocates that I'm sure are correct. So I can't wait to get through this. Whether I'll do it, I mean, is it going to lend itself to just doing it in 2 weeks, or am I going to have to take a month? Or because if I were to, if I read 5 hours a day, I'm sure a fortnight will get most of it done. It is small print, love, but small print and it's 1,000 pages like that. But as I've said, length does not deter me, ladies and gentlemen. Sniggering in the back will not be tolerated. So yes, next up we have Charles Dickens, Our Mutual Friend. For any of our new fellow travellers on here, it behoves the long-time subscribers to the Joe Spiver YouTube channel to inform them that I have my misgivings about Mr. Dickens. I've read nearly every Bill Dunge's roman that he's ever written. I've done Nicholas Nickleby, David Copperfield, A Tale of Two Cities, Oliver Twist, Christmas Carol, which I reviewed not so long back. What else have I done? Something else. Oh, Great Expectations. Yeah, all of that type of stuff. And then, of course, there are always a few Dickensians that point out that Our Mutual Friend or Bleak House or Little Dorrit or The Old Curiosity Shop are better ones. And so I'm going to give Dickens another chance. This is Our Mutual Friend. 600-700 pages was 99 pence, so it was nice and cheap. But yeah, I think Dickens usually creates some quite one-dimensional characters, doesn't go a great deal into explaining the reasoning behind some of the insurmountable malevolence of some of the teachers in here, or some of the just some of the malefactors in his novels don't seem well researched. And when he does break the fourth wall, when he sort of impinges, some that sort of authorial intervention that Trollope's so famous for, he doesn't seem to do it successfully. He seems to do it in a sort of self-satisfied, lip-licking way that doesn't really add much to the conversation during the book. So I'm not a fan of Dickens by any stretch of the imagination, but I am going to give him one more chance. He's got so many acolytes and so many people who will come out to bat for him on a yearly basis. So I'm clearly missing out here. I'm clearly on a different level to you lot that like him. So I'm going to give him another chance with Our Mutual Friend. Penultimate last, we have some more non-fiction. This is the major works of Samuel Johnson, a totem of criticism. So this has got all sorts in here. I think we've got Dr. Johnson just there. I have read in full and in an abridged form Boswell's famous, not full-length biography, but reportage of his interactions with Samuel Johnson, and a little bit of his childhood in there as well. So I really enjoyed that. I don't think I've ever read a single word of Johnsonian criticism, so this is going to be good. So it's got some poetry in here, prologue to Garrick's Lather, epitaph on Claudie Phillips, what else? On archaism in poetry, parody of Thomas Warton, a Latin school exercise, debates on the Senate of Lilliput, then all of his periodical essays for The Rambler as well, just down here. All of his stuff for The Rambler and The Idler, Dictionary of English Language, which I think he spent a decade on, some of his later prose, and some of his biographical and critical prefaces to the works of English poets, Dryden, Young, Gray, all that lot. So this is 1,000 pages, and this will be in that weird interstitial zone, that weird interstice between a big book and something else. If I've got 1 or 2 days where I just want to relax and pull something short out, then I'm sure that Johnson's going to come in handy. So I'll be getting through that. Maybe 8 months into 2024, when I've gotten lots of it read, I might do a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of it, and that would be very good for everybody, I'm sure, involved. Last but not least, we have Homer's Iliad, or the Iliad and Odyssey of Homer, in I'm sure, rather regal copy, with its own little bookmark here. So this is obviously the story, first of all, the Odyssey of Odysseus returning from the Trojan War, and the Iliad essentially is a story of the Trojan War. I don't know who on earth translates any of this. I've read bits and bobs of Pope's poetic translation of it, but this is in I think rather modish prose. There is one omen and one only, that a man should fight for his country. Lots of it is set upon the opening of the novel of the Iliad. So I'm going to try and just quickly flick to that. Come on, Joe, this is wasting time. Book 1. Let's just have a look. Sing, O goddess, the anger of Achilles, son of Peleus, that brought countless ills upon the Achaeans. Many a brave soul did it send hurrying down to Hades, and many a hero did it yield a prey to dogs and vultures. For so were the counsels of Zeus fulfilled from the day on which the sons of Atreus, king of men, and great Achilles, first fell out with one another. So that's the Iliad and the Odyssey. I've had this for ages and ages and ages. Quite where I got this from, I don't know. This must be an online pickup. But yeah, it's a big, heavy thing, and my biceps will be enlarged after reading that. But
I think that pretty much concludes, folks. As I say, if you indeed do want a Q&A, then feel free to add me on Joe_Spivey_ on Instagram. You can send me a message and send me a question there, or you can leave one down in the comments. But yeah, I think to celebrate 1,000 subscribers and 50 videos also, then, you know, I'm sure a Q&A would be, I don't know, helpful to you to get, you know, don't ask me a bookish question, or you can feel free to ask me a bookish question if you want, but I talk about books all the time in here. Let's talk about something different. Let's talk about Buzz Lightyear or Donald Trump or On the Nature of Being. That would all be, I'm sure, very stimulating. So yes, I'm not going to ramble on for much more than 20 minutes, but yes, thank you ever so much for 1,000 subscribers, folks. On we march to 2 and 3 and 4,000 until, of course, I will be in the Houses of Parliament and, you know, assume dictatorial powers I always talk about. So yes, thanks ever so much for watching your booktube, and goodbye.